Hey Sunshines, it's me, Cassie. It has been a while since we last chatted, but if you can't tell, my image quality has slightly increased. I got a new camera and I am super duper excited to be releasing my first video with my better camera. Today I wanted to share some tips of a personal hobby. This video is going to be the first in a series of cosplay how-to intro to cosplay videos that I'm going to be working on and releasing on my channel. Today I really just wanted to share some tips for beginner cosplayers who might not be sure where to start. Without further ado, let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do when you're beginning cosplaying is to pick a character. That can be a little bit of a daunting task, but I do think there are a couple of components that can help you out. First of all, of course, you're going to want to pick a character that you like. This can be someone who you just think is an attractive character, or someone who you think that you look like, or someone that you have more of a emotional connection with. It's kind of up to the individual for their reasons for picking a character, but it will help you to keep going and put in all the hard work if it's a character that you really care about. Another thing to keep in mind is to think about why you're cosplaying and what sort of skills you have that you can bring to the cosplay. For instance, if you're really good at prop making, it would definitely be a good thing to keep in mind when you're picking out a character to look for a character who you could somehow integrate that skill with. If you really want to work on developing your wig styling skills, you could also keep that in mind. My second tip is that you can cosplay anyone that you want. You shouldn't let anyone tell you that you can't cosplay a character. It doesn't matter your race, your age, your gender, your size, anything. If you want to cosplay that character and you're willing to put in the work to make that costume, you have every right to cosplay that character as much as anyone else. There might be some people who say otherwise, but I say you should ignore those people. That can sometimes be easier said than done, but you have absolutely as much of a right as anyone else to cosplay them. The third cosplay tip is that although you can cosplay whoever you want, you should keep your limits in mind. This pertains to both money and skills. In terms of money, cosplay is not worth breaking the bank. Cosplay can be a very expensive hobby. It's really important to keep that in mind and to set a budget when paying your bills and paying for food and all of that should come before cosplay every single time. In terms of skills limiting your cosplay, Rome wasn't built in a day. You probably won't be able to go out and make your most elaborate dream cosplay as your first cosplay, but that's okay. We all have to start somewhere, and I think that it's better to start with a costume that is at your skill level that you will be able to make without, driving yourself crazy. My fourth tip is to plan ahead. When I am putting together cosplays, I usually know at least a year in advance because I have a lot of cosplays that I know I want to make eventually in the back of my mind, so I'm looking for parts of those costumes. This has really helped me because I'll be looking for a very specific article of clothing in a very specific color, and since I'm looking for it so far ahead of time, I'll be able to find good deals on those articles of clothing rather than having to order them really expensive off of the internet. Planning ahead is also really useful in terms of actually having to make parts of your costume. It is really stressful to be trying to put things together the week before the convention or the week before your deadline. So planning ahead and making sure you have enough time is really going to make sure that your costume is going to be the best that it can be. My next tip is to keep it simple. By that, I mean that I recommend simplifying your costume into smaller parts rather than looking at it as a whole. It can be kind of overwhelming to look at an entire costume and wonder how you're going to put together that whole entire thing, but once you actually sit down and make a list of all of the small parts of the costume, it becomes something a lot more manageable. My sixth tip is don't forget the little details. One thing that I think a lot of people really harp on, for good reason, is to use reference images. Especially if you're really into accuracy like me, this will make sure that you don't forget the little details. Even if you aren't as nitpicky about accuracy as I am, I still think that this tip is important. Take some time while you're putting your costume together to think about all the little details just to make sure that you don't forget something small that is personally important to you in your costume. One thing that I think you should also keep in mind is to do a makeup test if you can before your convention or your photo shoot. I neglected this aspect during my first convention, and I ended up the morning of kind of not really being sure what I wanted to do with my makeup and having to fumble around, and I just wasn't really prepared. And furthermore, another little detail you should not forget is to think ahead to your convention emergency cosplay repair kit. What I mean by this is at the convention, your costume might have malfunctions while you were walking around, and so it's important to have, a hot glue gun, needle and thread, you know, maybe some setting powder that you have with you in case of a malfunction. It depends specifically on your costume, so you're gonna have to tailor that emergency repair kit based on your costume. Next tip is to remember that wigs and makeup can be your friend. I know that a lot of people when they start cosplaying might think, oh, you know, my hair's the same color as my characters, I don't need a wig, or my face looks just fine, I don't need to wear any makeup. There are reasons that people include those things in their cosplays. In terms of wigs, you're cosplaying a cartoon character who can often have really unrealistic looking hair, so it can be really useful to have a wig that gives you that extra volume that you just can't accomplish with your own hair. Makeup can also do the same thing in enhancing your eyes with use of eyeliner, but even foundation is really important because it just makes your skin look absolutely perfect. I think that really the reason behind wearing wigs and makeup is because it photographs better than your natural features. And this is a costume that you will be photographed in, so those are just kind of useful things that you can use. There are tools there to help you. My next tip is to do your research. I'm trying to give you guys as many tips as I can here, but there are so many things to learn about cosplay. So it's really important to put in the time to do some research while you're putting together your cosplay because it will pay off. I always do so many hours of research on the internet when I'm putting together a costume, because there really is so much to learn and there's so many resources out there. Things that you could potentially research: makeup tips for making, wig styling and wig care, contact lens tips if you're going to be using circle lenses, sewing tips, convention etiquette. My next tip is to figure out where you want to take this cosplay. Most people take cosplays to conventions, so you're going to want to look into which conventions are in your area, or you could look into getting a photographer and having a photo shoot, or even just having a friend come over and taking pictures of you, or figure out why you want to cosplay and where you want to take this costume. My next tip is to practice your poses. This is absolutely something that I did not even think about during my first convention. I got there the first day, I was in my Krista from Attack on Titan cosplay, and I had no clue what to do with my arms or how to stand or anything. So something that I really recommend is brainstorming poses, looking for resources on the internet with tips for being photographed, maybe even looking for some actually canon poses that your character does. And after that, you're going to want to take it to the mirror and practice. You might think that a pose is going to look really good, but when you actually do it in front of the mirror, in front of the camera, it's going to look kind of silly. On the other hand, some poses that feel really silly can look really good. So it's definitely worth it to actually spend some time in front of the mirror practicing those before. My 11th tip is to pack ahead of time, or to at least pack carefully. I went to Anime Central a few months ago and I cosplayed Fairy Vriska from Homestuck, and she has a robotic arm. Somehow, when I was in my packing frenzy, packing last minute, not double checking, I completely forgot the entire hand. I literally was so devastated at the convention. I was just crying and freaking out. I had no clue what I was gonna do. I ended up just improvising and painting my hand gray, so it worked out okay. But this could have easily been avoided if I had just packed more carefully and made sure that I had everything. So I really want to drive this point home because there's nothing more devastating than getting to the convention and realizing you forgot something very important to your costume. So learn from my misery and please pack carefully. My 12th and final tip is to avoid cosplay burnout. I recently got myself into a cosplay burnout where I literally did not even want to think about cosplay. I didn't want to look at any of my costumes or even think about ever cosplaying again. And it's really only recently that I'm starting to think about it and work on it a little bit more again. Cosplay burnout can easily be avoided. Really just set reasonable goals and don't expect too much from yourself. If you pace yourself and aren't too hard on yourself for not being able to do everything right away, I think that you'll be okay. Just be sure to know your limits and don't try to plan for more than you can handle. So these were the 12 big tips that I could think of. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the first video in a series of cosplay videos that I hope to put out. So if you are interested in cosplay and want to learn some tips about how to refine your skills based on my experiences, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. I have a whole list of videos that I'm planning on making, from things about wig styling, to makeup, to face paint, to all sorts of things. So it should be a good time. Have any other questions about cosplay in the meantime, please feel free to go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer any questions that I can to the best of my ability. Or you can also go ahead and contact me at my Tumblr. The information will be in the description box below. Please also don't forget to thumbs up this video, and until next time. I got the best new shirt this last week, guys. Do you see this? I'm so happy!